All right, good evening. So, I've been asked to do this now for a few times. It's been for a while now I've been asked to do it, or to explain more about it. I just had a couple of civilians in my inbox asking me, while I play with my tripod, asking me about basically what I do for state management. So to manage my mind state, okay? And so this is stuff that can help you if you have PTSD, anger issues, anxiety, even depression, or just overall negative and bad thinking, okay? And not, all right, so get into a lot of what I'm doing is science-based, right? So there's some brain science behind it, but there's a lot that is also unverifiable, okay? So in other words, I think it works. All right, but I'm not 100% sure. It seems to be working for me. It seems to have worked for others, but more research kind of needs to be done, right? So I am. There is a non-secular aspect to it. I am a theist. Okay, I do believe in God, all that, but I'm going to approach this from a secular perspective, and I'm going to explain even though I'm at a church right now, I'm going to explain the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I'm going to kind of more or less demonstrate it, shorten the meditation part so you're not sitting here watching me meditate for a while. That could be boring, but I'm going to go through step by step why I'm doing what I'm doing and kind of the science behind it, what it's doing for you, all that good stuff, okay? I'm realizing more and more, especially within the last, I'd say 4 months now, that state management is where it's at. When I say state management, I mean your mind and emotional state, okay? Your success or failure in life and your personal happiness in whether it's your relationships or whether it's just any aspect of your life is directly tied in with your mind state and your emotional state, okay? So if you can't, the better you manage those things and the better you have your mind and emotional state directed towards what's going to serve you the best and what's going to serve others the best, just the better off you're going to be at not only being happy, but having healthy relationships. This is a relationship and intergender dynamic, channel. So, but that's, you're going to handle your woman better. Women, you'll handle your men better. You're just going to handle everything else better, okay? Instead of bringing all of your trauma and damage and bullshit and bad behaviors to the table and expecting someone else to deal with it, you're going to deal with your own shit and actually be able to free yourself to have a happy and healthy interaction with the other person. And if you're a dude and you're listening to this, that is critical. Honestly, the burden of performance is on you. If you can't manage your mind and emotional state, she will leave you. Whether she leaves you physically or just mentally and emotionally, she will leave you, okay? So you have to have this under control. My soldier friends and soldiers that listen to this stuff, look, dude, I don't care whose fault or what it is. I mean, you've had a lot of shit happen to you, all that stuff. I get it. You got PTSD, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, me too, right? But it doesn't fucking matter. You have to deal with it, handle it. It's up to you. Doesn't matter who brought the trauma into your life. Doesn't matter what brought the trauma into your life. It's your responsibility to handle it. I've used the analogy. It's like trauma is like somebody else brought in trash and left it in your living room, okay? The only person who can remove that trash and take it to the curb is you. Doesn't fucking matter whether it's your fault or not, okay? And so if you want to be happy, healthy, successful, all right, have good relationships, all that good stuff, have a strong frame, be an alpha male, you have to have your control and, you have to direct your mindset and your emotions. That's it. You have to have control over those things. You have to be able to deal with these things in a way that serves you, okay? So that's why we do this. It's a big part of what I do now. So for example, just got back from some military training weekend. There was nothing, we didn't do anything that special. It wasn't a big deal, but I'm always a little more volatile mentally and emotionally the day or two after any kind of training. Why is that? So in my unconscious mind, I have stored some trauma, because coming back from military things, or in preparation to go to military things, there were often bad shit that happened, particularly in my relationships. I mean, you think that women don't stick around for you and you're a civilian, try leaving for weekends, weeks, months, years at a time, right? You're by yourself. Nobody's going to be there for you, all right? You're there for you. That's it. You believe in a higher power like I do, makes it a little bit more palatable, So now my higher power and myself is there for me. And nobody else is really fucking there for me, all right? And that's the reality of it, all right? I mean, people want my company. People like me. People want to hang out with me, be near me. But honestly, if it came down to it, if I wasn't able to serve them, would they be there? I don't know about that, all right? So, but I can rely on myself, okay, and my higher power. And I have to manage my state with that, all right? So I'm always a little volatile, so it'd be like today, it'd be a little volatile day. So it'd be really important for me to do this. It's a difference between me yelling at cars in traffic. It's a difference between if I'm in a relationship, having a toxic interaction maybe. I mean, I'm not like this, volatile person, but it's because I do this now. Okay, I've been through periods of my life when, PTSD related thinking is taken over, and I was a lot more volatile. So when you do this on a daily basis, okay, whether it's a couple times a day, once a day, whatever, it's a compounding effect. So it's not going to you'll see some results maybe day one, but it's really week 2, week 3, week 4, you start really seeing the results. And then months down the line, you're able to manage your emotional and mental state so much more effectively when you follow a daily routine that involves self-hypnosis and meditation. Okay, so first step, other thing too, in case, some of you guys, think maybe it's a little weak or beta or whatever the fuck, you're trying so hard to be alpha all the time, right? That you would have to manage your mind state, that you don't just show up and it's managed, all right? Like whatever. Listen to this shit, okay? Soldiers and warrior classes of various different cultures throughout history had a practice, all right? The samurais had a meditation practice. The knights of, think of Knights Templar, they had rosaries, they had prayer, meditation practice. Vikings had meditation practices. I mean, a lot of times those practices were ritualized. They often had daily routines. Native American, African warrior tribes, Southeast Asia, everywhere I've researched, throughout time, there's been a practice, a self-practice and usually a collective practice. And that helped warrior classes who had to go into situations where there was a lot of violence. It helped them manage their mind and emotional state, okay? And then, of course, technology and modern thinking, and we think we're better than that now, and we don't do any of that stuff. And maybe someone's going to tell you you're weak for doing that, or you're a pussy for doing that, or whatever, but guess what? Soldiers are now killing themselves all over the place, aren't they? So, we don't do things to manage our mental and emotional state, and then as soldiers, we're killing ourselves. So maybe if we got back to some of these practices and started handling our own shit in this way and started doing it systematically and daily, maybe we would be a little better off and not be so apt to end up in the mental health system, right? All right, so that speech is over with. Let's get into the practice. So this video is not too long. So here I am in a church, all right? It's a beautiful church. Let's see if I can show you more of it. Let's see. This is the Shrine of the Little Flower. Why did I pick this one? Because it's really cool and it's right by my house, all right? Now, why go someplace? Okay, so this gets the idea of a sacred space. What's a sacred space, all right? So again, I'm approaching this now secular perspective. I do not want to get into religious discussions with people here, okay? But a sacred space is something that you will associate now that space with this practice that gets your mind and your emotion state, in a better place. So when I can do this stuff at home, okay? I can just roll out of bed and, you know, fart and drink a glass of water and start trying to meditate. All right, done it before, that's fine. I find it far less effective because there's no preparation for it. So picking a space, whether it's out in your yard someplace you have to go, or someplace you drive to, like a beautiful church, maybe a lake, okay, somewhere where it's secluded, somewhat secluded, private, and you can get into that mind state. All right, and as you go through that routine of going there, you're getting into a state of being. All right, that's going to help. The more present you are, and the more of a mind state you can get in to deal with some of your emotional baggage and your trauma, the better. All right, we're trying to get out of our conscious mind and into deeper unconscious things. All right, so going to a sacred place can help that. So here at Sacred Objects, I have a cross here that I carry. Sometimes there's rosary, things like that. Again, what's the object going to do for you? Let's say you're a completely secular atheist, that's fine. But the object, now when I touch the object, put my hands on it, it anchors me. So anchoring is a physical act that puts your mind in a state of being or a mind state. I'm trying to bypass my conscious mind right now when I do these things to get into the unconscious, pull out things that are, you know, emotional baggage, trauma, bad behaviors, bad thoughts, all those things. And I'm trying to get rid of those things. And so all of these little bits help. So having a sacred object too. So now, let's say I'm traveling, I don't really have a good sacred space to go to, and I do have to roll out of bed and do it. Well, at least I have a sacred object I can hold on to. And now it anchors me into the mind state I want to get into. And so neurolinguistic programming and psychology covers anchoring in more detail. You can look that up, but that it's basically a physical representation of what you want your mind to do. Okay, so that's what the object kind of does for you. All right, so I'm going to start now my practice. I'm sitting here with Jesus. It's my boy Jesus. We're going to have lunch later. Well, dinner, because it's later. Anyway, so this is a sculpture and all this stuff. Usually I don't sit here. Usually I come out of my car and I go over to this little space here. So again, and this is just space. You can have your own space. It doesn't, it doesn't have to have the Christian connotation that mine does, but I am Christian, so that's why I do this. All right, but anyone who knows me knows I'm not like a Bible thrower or anything crazy. I just have my beliefs. Okay, so here we go. So we have this beautiful statue of Mary, waterfall. So now it can put me in a state of mind and a state of being. All right. And so now what I have is 3 practices that I do. And God, this is so personalized. I can't believe I'm doing this on camera. But I have three practices I'll do. One, I want to purge my mind of any negativity. Okay. And for me being a theist, I'm going to apologize for any wrongdoings I've done. So now I'm going to absolve myself of wrongdoings and guilt, okay, and unfetter my mind, uncloud my mind with that stuff, and I'm going to ask my higher power to take away the negative thoughts, negative feelings, and then I'm going to do a breathing exercise that's designed to do that. So the breathing exercise is a short breathing. Try to put that there. Hopefully my audio is good. Breathing exercise is a short. I use a short breathing exercise, and I come from the diaphragm down here. I'm going to demonstrate it so you'll see what I'm doing, okay? I go in through the nose, out through the mouth very quickly. Now let's think about anxiety for a minute and think about those things. When someone has anxiety and it overwhelms them, what happens? A panic attack can ensue, right? And then they're short in breath and they're breathing really high in the lungs, all right? Because now their body is in this anxious state. You give somebody a bag and they put it on their mouth, and they breathe in and out of the bag, and that short breath is designed to try to slow down and bring that anxiety down, okay? So, and purge themselves of those anxious and negative feelings. So, I mean, we do this in medically speaking with bringing down anxiety and reducing panic attacks. Well, I'm going to start my practice with that, okay? I'm essentially going to do a shorter breath stroke, low in my abdomen, and it's designed to purge that negativity, negative thoughts, and get it out of my body. So emotions exist in the body. They're chemical, okay, in nature. So there's a lot of things I'm doing with my body to rid the negative emotions, all right? To rid yourself of negative emotions, you actually have to do things with your body. It's not just all up in your conscious little brain there, okay? You have to opening the unconscious mind as well. So again, pathway for information is hindbrain, mammalian brain. Then your unconscious mind is where you store thoughts and feelings from the past, because it's really a behavioral response. So like something happens, let's say, that creates a trauma. Well, you could have a similar thing that would happen to create that trauma, and it creates a emotional response that's similar to when you had the trauma. You know what I mean? It's stored there. It allowed you to survive at the time the trauma happened, or the time the bad thing happened, or whatever, but that doesn't mean it's productive, and that doesn't mean it's serving you well. You know what I'm saying? So, for example, maybe an angry response, I lived through it, so now my body, feels angry when similar stimulus starts to happen. And when you practice and get into whatever response it is, whether it's really negative or serving and not serving you, or positive, you are ingraining neurological pathways for that response. So if I'm an angry person and I'm used to getting angry all the time, okay, you're not getting out the anger by just being angry all the time. What's happening is you're solidifying those pathways to be angry. So now when something happens to me, I have a shorter path to anger, right? Versus something maybe more productive. Anger can be productive, by the way, if used properly, but I don't want to just be an angry guy, getting angry at everything that's going on around me, because I'm practicing that neurological pathway. You get what I'm saying? So we're trying to recondition that stuff with these practices, all right? So anyway, here's the breathing. I usually do 90 breaths. I kind of stole this, by the way, borrowed. If you want to go to Tony Robbins' video and his morning routine, part of this simulates that. But he got it from yoga, okay? And actually there's Christian monks that do this shorter breath practice as well in the beginning of their prayers. So it's it's cross-cultural, but if my video is too long and boring, you can go to Tony Robbins' morning routine. It's kind of similar, at least this piece, the breathing piece is similar. So okay, so now I'm going to do the cleansing breath, whatever you want to call it. All right, so. Okay, so I actually feel a lot better already. So that kind of got rid of a lot of negative thoughts, feelings, anxiety, that sort of thing. Okay, so now ordinarily what I would do next is I would go into the chapel and I would go what is called 24-hour Eucharistic adoration. I can go day or night. The Eucharist is the physical, we'll say, representation, but we believe it actually is physically the body of Jesus and a representation of God. So I'm kneeling before my representation of God, and I'm going to continue the practice. Now in this case, though, I'm not going to go in because I don't want to film that inside the chapel. I don't know if that's a good thing to do or not. I'm not up on church rules. But anyways, ordinarily I would go into the chapel, I would do that. Instead of that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my way back to this little chair here, and I'm going to do it outside, okay? So I'm only going to do about 9 breaths each, but I actually set my timer to 5 minutes, and I'll do 5 minutes of gratitude. So it's almost impossible, if not completely impossible, to maintain a state of anger, negativity, anxiety, fearfulness, if you're grateful for what you have and what's going on. No matter how bad things are, you can find this gratitude. And so I spend 5 minutes. In this case, I'm just going to count 9 breaths, and I do it in prayer, and I just focus on the things I'm grateful for, and a quiet meditation. I let whatever things that I'm grateful for pass into my mind and then out of my mind in a very relaxed state and fashion. So this changes my mind and my mental and emotional state just by being grateful. So I'm going to do that for 9 breaths, but I usually will set a timer for 5 minutes. All right, so I'll do that right now. Okay, I lied. I only did 5 breaths. I am on video, and that's incredibly boring probably to watch me breathe for 9 breaths. As each breath happens, they get slower and slower because I'm getting calmer and calmer as I'm breathing. My brain waves are coming down from wherever they were at into more of a theta state. If I do that for 5 minutes or so, I can get myself into a theta state, which is a very low brainwave state in a meditative state. Delta is sleeping, so theta is alert, but very in a lower state. Right now I'm probably at like a low alpha state right now. I'm not quite a theta state. Okay. Again, sacred object, it just anchors me to getting the mindset in that emotional state where I want it. So I did 5 breaths today of gratitude. Again, I kept it short. Normally it would be 5 minutes. I'm going to do 5 more breaths, and now what I'm going to do is put myself in a peak state. So I'm going to think and put myself and imagine with as much detail as possible something, a situation where I was performing at my highest and I felt really good about it. Okay, so a situation where it could have been anything. It could have been a sport when you're in middle school and you won a trophy, or just accomplishing something in your work, or meeting a significant other or family, or doing something with your child, anything, but where you felt like you were in a peak state. That's kind of where you want to put yourself. So I'm going to do that now for 5 breaths, and it's a peak state meditation. So all right. Okay, so little hard to focus in 5 breaths, but I think I did okay. Given that I'm filming myself doing this, is actually very personal to me, so it's awkward to do it. If it wasn't for the fact that I think it might help like a ton of people, I wouldn't be doing this on Facebook Live. But anyway, so back to a couple of things maybe forgetting. So sacred object here, I personally hold it like this, and I touch my thumb and forefinger, okay? And I touch my thumb to the side of my hand. The reason I do that is because it anchors. Again, anchoring is a physical act that can stimulate a mind state, okay? So the object's anchoring, go to the sacred place that's anchoring as well. It all helps put you in that state. Well, let's say I'm in a situation, and I use this with military work, of course only interested if I'm in a firefight and I want to get myself in a non-anxious state and at a high performance state. I would do a physical act, and for me that was touching my thumb, either hand, into another part of my hand. So when I press my thumb, that helps me alleviate any anxiety, anger, any negative emotions, but it puts me right in the present. I literally have no emotion when I do that. So if I'm in a situation where there's a stressful situation, whether it's combat situation or maybe an argument, this here for me is just an anchoring move. So when I hold this and bring my brain waves down, that press of my thumb is anchoring. If I'm on my rifle, I can press my thumb into the handle of my rifle or into the foregrip of my rifle with the other hand, and it brings that anxiety down. It's an anchoring motion. So if I'm about to, let's say, go into a door and I don't know who's behind it, I got my rifle, I can and press, anxiety goes away, okay? So maybe you got an important meeting you got to go to, or maybe you're going into a stressful situation, or you find yourself in a stressful situation. You can press that. That's your anchoring move. You pick something that you do during meditation, anchor it, okay, you even everything out. Now, stress, PTSD, anxiety, all that stuff. Again, emotions, we got things going on in the unconscious mind, and then there's the emotions. The emotions are in the body, okay, as much as they're in the brain. They're actually biochemical, all right? So we want to be able to release that stuff. Now, another thing, sorry to mention, going into the chapel, if I were to have done that, there's a book that you could write intentions for. So I'll usually think of a person or something worthwhile that I want to pray for. Again, this is more of a theological thing, but I'll write what my intentions are. So maybe I'm praying for my son, that he has a good day at school, whatever. Or it could be something more serious. I'm praying for a family because there was a recent death, or praying for a friend or someone I know who's going through a hard time. So I will do that part every day. You could do that with a journal if you don't have something to write, okay? So that's something you could do. Or you could have your intentions for yourself during the day. All right, so that's a part of that too. So right there, that ends the morning routine, but I'm not quite done because I'm going to show you more stuff. All right, so every day I do this. The church, for me, the little sacred space, is 5 minutes from where I live. So it's real easy to just make this a part of my practice. The drive is 5 minutes. The actual practice is probably about 12 to 14 minutes worth of my time, maybe 15, just to do it. If you don't have 15 minutes for yourself, then you're not living life very well, okay? So just taking 15 minutes and doing it. Now, a lot of times prior to this, I've done some exercise. If it's not dry firing or some shadow boxing or something like that, I've gotten into Pilates lately, doing some Pilates movements, some joint mobility. Yoga's good. Why that kind of stuff? Because again, the emotions exist in the body. So if you're not moving the body, then you're not going to release these negative emotions and traumas that are holding you down and causing you to be in a maladaptive or bad mind state, okay? You actually have to do stuff with your body, all right? So I do my workouts too, usually gym times at night, gym times sometimes in the morning, but a lot of times I'll do something physical before I end up here first thing in the morning. So that ends my morning routine, but I want to show you there's a self-hypnosis part too now. Now, I can do this in the morning if I'm having a particularly anxious, I hate the word anxiety because it's not really describing me very well, but we'll say a negative or elevated state. You know what I mean? I'll do this. I'll do this in the middle of the day. If I feel that gut feeling, or that hole, or that emptiness, that empty feeling creeping in, or that, that kind of, that sort of little bit of anxiety creep in. A lot for me is a little PTSD related. Hope the Army doesn't watch this and then make me not operate, because they're assholes. But whatever, I'm managing it better. I'm managing it better than people who don't go to war, so whatever, right? But I'll show you kind of what I do for the self-hypnosis piece. I do something called EMDR therapy, okay? So that's something I've been getting into. I do regular talk therapy as well. These are all good things to do. Doesn't make me all fucked up. It just means that I'm actually better than people who consider themselves normal, to be honest, because having had to deal with traumas and different stuff, and then overcoming those things and managing my mind state and getting those perspectives. That's why I'm an effective coach. I'm a lot more elevated than I would be if I wasn't doing some of these practices like therapy and like EMDR therapy. Look up EMDR, it's pretty good. But what I'm going to do is really more of a self-hypnosis, okay? So it's self-administered. So I go into an app. I'm getting into this guy. Open this one up here. So this is EMDR. It's a self-administered EMDR. This one is called EMDR self-administered with 528 Hz harmonics. Okay, so sounds and harmonics can get into your unconscious mind. See, all this stuff is trying to break through conscious barriers to get into that deep unconscious mind where you store these behaviors. That's all like a lot of what I'm trying to do right now, and to release negative maladaptive emotions. So I can use this to do this. Now what it is a tonality that gets it helps me so my mind's not wandering or drifting. That tone just sort of shuts off the tendency for your mind to race, and it helps me get into that unconscious, okay? And if you look, see if you can see, let me go full screen on this. Okay, so if you look, it's a green light that goes back and forth, okay? So what the green light goes back and forth does is I put this in front of my face and I track it with my eyeballs back and forth. So it's kind of like similar to EMDR therapy, but it's not EMDR because that's guided by a professional. So this is really self-hypnosis. And I'm a very skeptical person. So when people bring something to my attention, I usually say that that's bullshit and I want to see the evidence. But there's a lot of evidence behind the EMDR, because what it is the therapist is using a light or his finger to track your eye movement. And when your eye movement moves back and forth, when you're processing the information, it gets in both hemispheres of the brain, okay? So you get into both hemispheres and into the unconscious, all right? Much like REM sleep, so they believe it mimics REM sleep. So when you go to sleep and you have your REM sleep, you're processing all of your things throughout the day. So what we're going to try to do, though, is reprocess trauma or negative emotions or negative feelings or negative things that have happened to us through a self-hypnosis. We're going to bring up that trauma or that thing that's on our mind or bothering us, and we bring it up. It's in a non-focused way. We just focus on the feelings, and whatever pops into our mind pops into our mind. We can journal it and stop 2 minutes in, 3 minutes in and journal it, or just hold it in your mind. With a back and forth eye movement and the tonality, it'll put you in a trance-like state. Now, this is not like stage hypnosis or any of the bullshit. It's actually how like Ericksonian hypnosis and some of this stuff works. It's getting into both hemispheres and getting past that conscious mind barrier. And so you get through there, you get into that unconscious mind. You can pull out the garbage, so to speak, and you can address it and reprocess it and restore it in a way that is more useful to you, okay? And you can do that with really any trauma. Now, if you have some serious trauma, like abuse situations, especially sexual, emotional, physical abuse, or a seriously traumatic event, witnessing death in front of you, killing, something like that, then I recommend you do these things too, but you also get in with a professional, okay? That you're getting guidance from a professional. You're not just doing this all by yourself, right? But that being said, And that goes with any of this stuff. I'm not a doctor or anything. That's probably my disclaimer. So somebody gets weird on me after watching a video, don't blame me. You know what I mean? So anyway, so now after doing all that, the meditative stuff, and I do this at night a lot too because I have trouble sleeping sometimes. And so at night I'll do this, and it'll reprocess traumas and bad shit and poison. And it's weird. Like when you do this, it's unguided, and you're just allowing that emotional feeling to happen, and you're allowing that whatever thoughts come to mind to happen on top of it. And you're not getting in the way. It's not logical, okay? You're just letting these things happen. And you might feel feelings of anger, you might feel depression, anxiety, you might feel upset, you might cry. There's a lot that can happen when you bring it up depending on how serious the trauma is. All right, so you want to do this in private without distraction. I'm doing it here just to show you, but you want to do this in private, okay? Trust me. And you let those things come out. Now, as they come out, you'll feel somewhere in the body where that feeling is stored, all right? This is bioenergy too that is involved with storing emotions. Bioenergy is not a thing I made up, okay? That's a word to describe how acupuncture and acupressure works. They call it chi or whatever, but there's so much garbage and woo-woo and bad science with that I don't even like using the word. But your body does have this electrical energy, and that energy, that electricity, if you want to call it that, will get all stopped up in these areas of your body that you're storing a negative emotion. And so you're doing that, and once you feel that feeling, you focus where on the part of your body that feeling is, and then you just let it dissipate. Now, you can also use or aid in tapping to make it dissipate as well. So sometimes I'll have if I'm feeling particularly like alone for whatever reason, just a very like feeling here, like after a breakup, I would just feel this emptiness right here. And so I would do this activity, and I might, as I'm breathing, I might just tap on it, okay, or massage it a little bit, just like this, or tap, all right? And the tapping breaks up that electrical energy. Now, there's a other type of discipline where they actually do it using the acupuncture points. I haven't found that necessary. I find that when I just tap, I'm probably on an acupuncture point as it is, and when I feel that feeling and I'm in the center of it, well, that's probably where the acupuncture point is, because that's where that bioelectricity is sort of, clouding there. So I'm releasing the electricity, I'm releasing those nasty chemicals, and I'm letting it dissipate through my body. What it's doing to my unconscious mind, though, is it's taking that trauma or that activity, it's bringing it out, it's dissipating it, I'm processing it like I would process it in a dream, and I'm coming up with more of a distance from that thing. So it's not like I'm trying to reframe it like, think happy thoughts about the bad thing. It's not really like that. What happens is this, okay? The thing, whatever that trauma is now right in front of my face because I brought it up. If something were to happen to stimulate trauma, then it would still feel the same way right in front of my face, okay? And it's personalized at this point. Now think of this. Think of, like, let's say a really bad, let's say a caretaker when you were a kid was verbally abusive, okay? We'll use that as an example. If they're verbally attacking you and you're a young child, that feels horrifying, right? At that moment, it feels really terrible, okay? And you're going to have an emotional bad response to that. Now, if it was distanced from you and you could see it happening to another person, it would still be not good, right? You'd have a judgment about that, and you'd say, that parent shouldn't talk to that kid that way. But it would not have the same emotional impact as if it was happened to you right then as a child. You see what I'm saying? So what you're doing is you're reprocessing this thing that happened to you, but you're able to see it from a further bird's eye view by dissipating the emotions. Okay, so now I can look backwards into trauma and understand it and look at it without having that negative emotional reaction. I no longer have that stored negative behavioral feeling now. So let's use example. Let's say, I used aggression against, somebody who was verbally abusive to me in order to get out of that situation. Now, fast forward years later, I'm in my relationship with your girlfriend or wife or whoever, and she comes at you in a way that stimulates those bad feelings, and now you use aggression, right, to get out of that situation because it worked for you before. That's what's stored in your unconscious mind. All those negative, bad emotions came out, so you use that aggression. Okay, well, that's not productive, right? It's not productive, especially if you're a male, to use verbal aggression, or especially not physical aggression, against somebody that's a loved one, even if they're behaving horribly. Right? So there's more productive ways of handling that. But you can't do that if you're clouded with emotional trauma and clouded with unconscious behavioral responses. So what this does is you can bring that trauma up and it dissipates it. And then when that happens, you just find yourself not responding in that same aggressive way. Because now you've dissipated that traumatic behavioral response. It's no longer the go-to response. You can replace it now with something more productive, because all of those negative emotions that would have caused that aggressive response are no longer present when this person, let's say your loved one, is kind of coming at you sideways and inappropriately, whatever. You no longer have that emotional baggage and feeling that would cause now that behavioral reaction of aggression. So that's an example of it. And it's not going to go away in like one self-hypnosis move, okay? This is something that you would have to do on a regular basis, a few times a week to daily. Again, I usually do it at night, but if I'm having a particularly challenging day, I'll do it right. If I feel that anxiety, I will pull my car over, take my iPad out, I will spend 10 minutes and do it. And that's how long it takes. So it's 10 minutes. And so I'll talk through it. I'm not going to fully do it on this, okay? So right now my eyeball is tracking the movement of the light. Now I sit up straight, so my posture's good. I have good blood flow and energy flow. And that's it. And I deep breathe. And now if I have any anxiety, no matter how micro, I'll focus on that. I'll actually bring it out and I'll let whatever thoughts happened while I'm doing that. And I'm breathing much like I was meditating. And then I'll guide through, and it'll be in a dreamlike state. It'll put my mind in almost a dreamlike state while I'm doing it, because I'll have the visualization of thing to thing. I could go from a past relationship to a friendship that went badly to a childhood experience to in combat. Any of that stuff could happen during this. I don't try to put any barriers to it. I just let it happen. I'm not doing it right now because I'd have to shut my mouth and actually do it. Okay, but that app is 10 minutes. I find that 10 minutes is sufficient if I'm having a particularly bad day. Yes, it's similar to EMDR. That's where I pulled it out of. EMDR is similar to hypnosis. If you look at Ericksonian and self-hypnosis, I mean, think of the old school, you're getting sleepy and then there's a thing that goes back and forth, or a hypnotist doing this. They're inducing a hypnotic state, which is, again, as I mentioned earlier in the video, similar to REM sleep. So yeah, I'm using technology to stimulate hypnosis in myself and guide myself through bringing out traumas and releasing them. Okay, it's just a matter of releasing traumas. Now, in the end, I'm in a pretty good mental or mind state. I can recondition, which is think of something productive, like when I feel angry, I'll do this. Okay, so when I feel angry, I'll stop and take a breath. So something simple like that, instead of yelling or throwing stuff or whatever, or getting tense. Just the act of stopping and taking a breath when you feel angry can give you that tactical pause to respond in an appropriate and productive manner. So that might be something that, after doing 10 minutes of the self-hypnosis with the EMDR app, which is what I was using, I will can continue for another couple minutes, or even just towards the end, and focus on that word or that mantra that when I feel angry, I'll take a deep breath, right? And so that can now recondition. The process of doing that is self-hypnosis. I'm reconditioning my response to the environment around me to be more productive, okay? So that concludes the video, really. If you got questions, hit me up. I've had so many people ask about this, and this is a working process for me. I realized how important it was in my life like 4 months ago when a lot of things fell apart for me. And the part that I'm to blame for is just not managing my emotional and mental state. There's a lot of things that others had done to me in certain cases that no matter what I had done, they would have done that, because I can't control another person. I can't control another person's trauma. I can't control another person's really shitty behavior. In your relationships, you can't do that either. If you're with somebody who is just going to be a shitbag, they're going to be a shitbag whether or not you do this activity or not, okay? But these kinds of things isn't about the other person, it's about you. So they're not doing things in a productive or healthy manner. Maybe you can influence them better because you're in a better mind state. And if they refuse that influence, and if they refuse to do what would be more productive, and it ends up being a relationship that ends, for example, well, at least you know that you've done everything you could and you were the best version of yourself while you had to break away from that circumstance, if that makes any sense. But this could be anything: work, business, personal relationships, whatever. Things start falling apart. Anyways, 4 months ago, realizing that I was getting the PTSD attack, and it was putting me in a real negative mind state all the time. So making me just hard to be around, with people who knew me. So I don't ever in a million years want to go back to that. So I'm very, very serious about doing this stuff now. Whereas before, because of anxiety-ridden thinking, we'll say it like that, you're going to resist doing it. Your mind gets into a high or low beta state, which is very erratic. You feel like you're wasting time by meditating. You feel like you're not, and I've had clients I've talked to. It's kind of funny because I'm like, well, have you done your meditation? Well, I try to do it when I'm driving, and they're like trying to life hack the meditation, like just take the 15 minutes and quit being a douchebag, right? But why won't they do that? What's 15 minutes? They won't do it because they resist it, because their mind is in this high beta state. So when you get your brain waves are in an anxious state, it makes you not want to do the things that would bring those brain waves down and cure that anxious state. That's the hitch with this stuff, right? So you got to just kind of make yourself do it. The morning routine is a good start. The self-hypnosis with the EMDR app has been tremendous in helping me. It's been so huge, can't even tell you. Now, again, I do EMDR with a professional. I also do the counseling too. If you've got a lot of trauma and shit going on, I recommend it. I've been getting into Pilates just for whatever, but yoga's good. Something besides just, don't get me wrong, I like lifting big ass weights and running and punching things too, right? But, do something that's going to create body movements too. Even dance would be interesting. I was talking to somebody who's very much into dance, and that could be an interesting way of moving your body around and dissipating negative emotions, you know what I mean? Yoga's known for that, but Pilates is good too, is what I'm finding. So I endorse all of those things. But yeah, that self-hypnosis is 10 minutes of your time, and it's tremendous. Okay, and again, you do it to dissipate the negative emotions, but you can also do it to anchor a positive response to something. You know what I mean? And so there you go. There's a whole bunch of stuff. A lot of that's verifiable. A lot of it isn't. This is a working process for me. So, I'm working through it on myself. I have a few, I'll call them guinea pig clients who have agreed to, we haven't worked out a deal so I can work on some things with them with this stuff. But as I progress forward in my, we say coaching practice, I guess, this is going to be more of a part of it for people who need it. The mental health, the VA and, the mental health communities, unfortunately, in most areas has been wholly ineffective at helping people solve these problems. They'll throw medication at you and they'll let you continue the problem and then treat the symptoms with medication instead of getting to the source of the problem, which is in your unconscious mind and hidden in your body in those negative emotions. Talk therapy is important, but it's all surface though. It scratches the surface. You got to get behind that into where you're storing okay, these behavioral responses to things that you've done and things that have happened to you and whatever it may be. You got to get behind it, and that's the tough part. EMDR therapy I highly endorse, but practices like this can get you, I mean, if it wasn't for practices like this that I do every day, the EMDR would be not nearly as effective for me. So thanks again for tuning in, everybody. I'm going to throw this on YouTube when I can. A veterans group had asked me, like, I got a couple of requests, so I'll be putting this around, and I just hope it's valuable. I hope you get something out of it, but you'll only get something out of it if you do it, right? If you actually do it. So get in my inbox if you got any questions, or post a question. I'll be happy to answer. Thanks again for tuning in.